Welcome. You're listening to The Aligned Self, Conversations in Creating a Conscious and Abundant Life. This is Daniel Denovi. I'll be your guide and host. Let's see just where we can take this. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the conversation. I'm going to take a moment here and just thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for your participation because, just me talking into the microphone doesn't quite complete the equation. So you being here makes it all worthwhile, and I appreciate you. Now, one of the ideas that is at the heart of every conversation we have is that of mind mastery, of putting you in the position of being able to begin or take it to the next level of mastering your mind, taking control, taking ownership over your mind. Now, mind mastery in general is a general topic, meaning to say mind mastery or use that as a goal, it's rather non-specific. But if I was to sum it up in one statement, it is never surrendering leadership of your mind to outside circumstances or forces. The Greek philosopher Epictetus said that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you that makes the difference. What I talk about on the podcast is essentially a reflection of what I've learned and implemented in my own life. Originally, this whole personal development journey was a rather selfish endeavor. I wanted to live the best life. I wanted to be the person that I wanted to be or that I knew that I could be. And I saw that the difference that made the difference was knowing how to run your brain. Managing your focus, what you focus on, how long can you focus on it. The tool that has assisted me in that has been meditation. And then also through meditation and self-hypnosis, I've been able to create a conscious, other than conscious rapport, where I can actually talk to my other than conscious mind and get an almost immediate response, almost an immediate answer. And that brings forth an inner awareness. Now, there's other dimensions to mind mastery. I refer to them as dimensions. And one of the interesting realizations you can have about mind mastery is that it is a never-ending journey. There's levels of mastery, levels of accomplishment, and the ability to create finer and finer distinctions in your own experience. What do I mean by that? Let's take exercise for an example. Let's say I engage in some aerobic exercise and I elevate my heart rate. If left to my own devices and I just stop exercising, it takes 2 or 3 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, for my body to get down to a resting heart rate, or let's say what is considered a normal heart rate. So if during exercise my heart rate is elevated to 140, as I cool down, it'll drop down to about 100. Resting heart rate is around 60 to 70. But at 100, it's about the heart rate that you could encounter doing an easy walk. So the challenge becomes, in focusing my mind, can I speed up the process? And through focus and attention and visualizing, can I lower my heart rate down to 100, between 100 and 110, in only a minute? Well, that I was able to do. And if you're a basketball player, this is perfect for you. You're going to have sprints and all-out play, and then you're going to have a break when the ball is dead, and then you want to use that time to recover quickly. And so a finer distinction is a different challenge. Can I lower my heart rate even faster, within 30 seconds? Focused on that, accomplish that. Next distinction, can I lower my heart rate even more? So instead of 100 and 110, can I drop it below 100? Well, I can't do that in 30 seconds, but I can do it within a minute. So the next challenge is to get it down within 30 seconds, below 100, after an all-out sprint. Let's talk about meditation. When I began meditating, the whole focus was to meditate for 7 minutes. And I can attest that in the beginning, I could barely make it a minute without checking the clock. My mind was so busy. And so there's a whole set of processes there that you want to master in meditation. And for me, the essential skill that you build in meditating is learning to focus your mind on where you want it to go, when you want it to go. That is considered a meta skill, which you use in a variety of different situations. A meta skill is a skill that operates in the background and allows you to perform even more masterful skills. Well, today we're going to talk about visualization. And that is a master skill. It's a meta skill that when you master that, It gives you access to all kinds of abilities. You can change beliefs, shift memories, heal the past, create the future. Now, obviously, since this is a podcast, an auditory podcast, it's going to be difficult for me to convey a lot of the visual aspects of visualization. But I'll talk a little bit about it, and I'll tell you about some of the benefits and the abilities that you can bring forth. Now, the statement that I want you to remember, and hopefully you'll remember it the rest of your life. In fact, just try and forget it. Anything that you vividly imagine. Now, this is the quote. So, are you ready? Are you ready to remember? Anything that you vividly imagine. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and a real experience. Your other than conscious mind cannot tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and the real experience. I'll tell you why. The short answer is that you don't directly interact with reality. You repackage it, represent it, reimagine it in your head. So let's say you go to a birthday party and there's a man there tying balloons into the shapes of animals. You have visual information. You see the man, you see the party. You hear different aspects about the party, maybe kids laughing, joking, running around, yelling, who knows. As the man ties the balloons, you hear the squeakiness of the balloons, and then you have a feeling as a result of the animal or the shape that this guy ties a balloon into. How did he do that? You're so amazed. Or hearing the squeaking, you might be waiting for the balloon to pop. So there's that sensation. But you essentially take all that stimuli and you reinterpret it in your mind. You repackage it through your 5 representational systems. Let's say you don't repackage it, but you represent it through your 5 representational systems. And so all you ever have is an interpretation of reality. So if you can vividly imagine something that maybe hasn't happened in the same way that you visualize or repackage or represent reality, quote unquote, then your brain cannot tell the difference, because on that level, the 2 experiences are one and the same. The first study that I ever heard that addressed this came out of the University of Chicago. And what they did is they looked at people throwing basketball free throws. The study was aimed to explore the effectiveness of visualization on improving basketball free throw performance. So the participants were divided into 3 groups. Group 1, practiced free throws daily, physically, for 30 minutes. Group 2 did not practice physically, but spent 30 minutes each day visualizing themselves making free throws. Group 3 did not practice or visualize at all. After 30 days, Group 1 improved their free throw accuracy by 24%. Those are the people that actually physically shot the free throws. Group 2, who only visualized, improved by 23%. Almost as much as those who practiced physically. Group 3 showed no improvement whatsoever. About the same time in 1995, a neurologist at the Harvard Medical School wanted to study the effects of mental practice on brain and skill development. He did this around piano practice. So participants were divided into 2 groups. Group 1 physically practiced a 5-finger piano exercise for 2 hours a day over 5 days. Group 2 mentally rehearsed the same exercise for the same amount of time without touching the piano. Both groups showed significant changes in the brain's motor cortex, which controls finger movements. The group that physically practiced showed slightly more cortical changes, but the mental practice group also demonstrated significant improvements in their ability to play the exercise when tested. What they found is when we visualize physical movement, it actually translates to micro movements within the muscles. The nerves fire off at the micro level. You can actually build up a sweat. Now, some of you know that if you dream and you're running or there's a lot of physical activity, you can wake up in a sweat. Now, this study I found interesting. Strength training visualization, and the researchers were Yu and Cole in 1992. They were at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation, and they found that participants who visualized themselves performing strength exercises increased their muscle strength by 22%, despite not physically exercising. This has since been used in the rehabilitation process. When someone cannot physically exercise, they actually visualize the exercise process. The Simonton Institute used visualization to help people heal from cancer. One of the techniques is visualizing white blood cells in the shape of great white sharks. Little itty-bitty great white sharks swimming around in your bloodstream. And they swim around and gobble up all the cancerous cells. This process was used with people initially that were in stage 4, at the final stages where they could do no more with medical intervention, and they introduced the visualization technique because they thought it would be irresponsible to teach people how to visualize instead of doing the medical treatments. So remember, this was initially at a stage where people were considered beyond medical intervention, and the visualization made a profound difference and extended the person's life when they were considered terminal. Just through visualization, they were able to put the cancer in remission. Now remember, the energy behind this is going out and attacking the cancer cells. Later, they found that there's a 50% cure rate when people engage in gratitude and love. They actually changed the biochemistry to joy and love and expand the heart, and the love just absorbing all the atypical cells. Now, over the years, I've had some people tell me that they just can't visualize. They try, but they just can't seem to maintain the image. Well, like anything, you'll get better with practice. One of the ways to practice is to have something sitting in front of you. I used to practice with a flower or a rose in front of me. I would stare at the rose for a while, and then I would close my eyes and would try to revisualize or visualize the rose in my mind's eye, just as it was sitting on the table. Now, at first, it was kind of blurry, kind of blobby, but over time, I started tuning into more and more detail on the rose, and I was able to recreate the detail in my mind. Early on in life, I was a strong auditory thinker, but what I wasn't aware of consciously is that I actually did have a very strong visual component to my thinking. But most of the time, it was outside my conscious awareness. But by practicing, bringing it into my conscious awareness, I got better and better at it over time. Now, when I was introduced to Neuro-Linguistic Programming, it took my visualization skills to a whole new level. One of the core techniques of NLP is utilizing submodalities. Now, the 5 representational systems that we sense the world with are considered modalities. So subcomponents of those different modalities are specific differences within those different modes or modes of thinking. We predominantly think in 3 different modes of thinking: visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically, or sensation. So most people are either right-handed or left-handed. They have a preferred hand that is their default. If you're right-handed, you tend to do just about everything with your right hand. And when you're left-handed, you do just about everything with your left hand. Although left-handed people tend to be a bit more ambidextrous than the people that prefer to use their right hand. That's because left-handed people live in a right-handed society, by and large. So just like when people have a preferred hand that they like to use, most people have a preferred sense that they like to think with or lead with. And lately there's been studies of people that say they don't visualize or they don't have an internal voice. Well, those people that say they don't visualize or they don't have an internal voice, those are just occurring at the other than conscious level. They're not consciously aware of them. Because if you did not make internal pictures, you could not tell the difference between black and blue. If you did not visualize, you would park your car in a parking lot and you could not find it. Literally, you could not find it because you wouldn't have an internal representation in your mind of what your car looked like. Or where in the hell in the parking lot did you park it? See, when we go out to the parking lot to find our car, we look for the car that represents or matches our internal reference. So, if you're one of those people that don't think they visualize, understand that you do, you're just not necessarily aware of it. So stick a pin in that, and let's go back to the basketball study at the University of Chicago back in 1996. Remember, Group 2 visualized making free throws. Now, what they didn't say in that is how specifically did they visualize? You see, nobody ever asked this. How specifically are you making pictures? What specifically are you seeing? What specifically are you doing on the inside, on your internal movie? It wasn't until Richard Bandler was first developing some of the principles of NLP. He was having a lot of one-on-one interviews with people trying to decipher how they thought, and hence the discovery of submodalities. So, now this is different than subpersonalities that you've heard me talk about it. This is submodalities. So for the sake of this podcast, we're just going to talk about visual submodalities. And I don't necessarily expect you to learn anything from this, but I want to expose you to the idea so you can start becoming aware of it, at least to a small degree. So when a person visualizes, how specifically do they visualize? Is it a movie or is it a still frame? Is it in color or is it black and white? Is it in focus or is it defocused? What is the brightness level? Where is it on your visual screen in your mind's eye? How close is it? Is it within arm's reach? Is it right up in your face? Is it further out? Is it panoramic or is there a frame around it? Now, there's a few more visual submodalities, but we'll just talk about the ones I've mentioned so far so we don't muddy the water. So what they found is when people represent an image in their mind, a memory in their mind, it's represented in a specific way. Usually, if it's an intense memory, it's fairly close. It's in vivid color. There's a lot of clarity. When things get overwhelming, sometimes they're too close. And so by taking that image and kind of pushing it further out and getting some distance on it, you've heard people say this, I just got some distance on it, or I had to take a step back. That is literally what they're doing in their head. Richard noticed this when he was talking to people, and he would ask them specifically what they were doing in their head. So by manipulating or changing how you represent something in your mind, by changing the submodalities, you change the impact of that memory. So a couple episodes ago, I was talking about when I thought I was going to die. Die in an accident. I had that feeling, I had that palpable feeling. And so I was visualizing or had a sense of what was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen for sure, but I kind of had an accident somewhere out there. And I just immediately grabbed it with my left hand and I drug it down to the lower left-hand corner of my visual field. I just put it aside. And as I was putting it aside, taking it down, I washed out the color. For me, color is one of my critical submodalities. Now, every person is coded a little bit different. And if you were to study NLP, we would figure out what is your code. How are your memories? How are your images coded? What changes can we make that impacts the memory? So for me, I was taking it from the middle of my visual field and I was pulling it down and swiping it down to the left, almost out of view. I had a client one time that could not drive by the donut shop without stopping for a chocolate eclair. Every day she would say, I'm not stopping. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to get that chocolate eclair. But as soon as she started driving by it, all she thought about was that chocolate eclair. She could see it in her mind's eye, and so she would stop every day to get that chocolate eclair. So I asked her while she was sitting in my office, can you visualize the chocolate eclair in your mind's eye? And she said, yes. Where is it in your visual field? For her, it was just kind of off to the right, upper right of her visual field, within reaching distance. Like she could reach out and touch this chocolate eclair. So I had her reach out and grab it with her left hand and drag it down to the left, to the opposite side. And as she was dragging it, the color would wash out. It would just become like a gray chocolate eclair. It didn't have the shiny frosting. I had her do that 3 times. And then I said, reach up and grab that eclair again. She says, I can't. I said, why can't you? She said, it's not there anymore. I asked her, what do you mean it's not there anymore? I was being a little facetious just to draw attention to the fact that we had shifted something internally. She says, it's gone. I can't picture it in my mind. I can hear the word, but I don't see a picture anymore. If I say the word, chocolate eclair, do you have that same feeling? She said, no, I don't want it. I had another client come to my office one time, and she said, I don't know if I'll be able to make it through the whole session. She says, I have a massive pulsating headache, and I don't actually know if I can focus on a conversation. So I had her indicate where the pulsing feeling was coming from, and it was kind of back and on the right side. And I said, does it have a color? She said, it's red, and it's like an angry red, and it's just pulsating, bright, like a light on top of a cop car. I asked her, can you turn down the intensity of the light? Just dim the light down so it's not quite as bright. She said, yes. Now, it's pulsating at a particular rate. Can you slow down the rate that it's pulsating? Maybe even like blink, blink, blink. Slow it down more and more until it's not blinking at all. And she did that. And she reported it's starting to feel a little better. I said, what happens if you turn that red into a light blue or a light green. You pick the color. She picked a light green. She says it's almost completely gone. Now, can you shrink the light until it's only the size of a quarter? And she did that. And I said, now can you float it across to the other side and out your ear and have it drip off your earlobe? And she did that and said, oh my God, it's completely gone. Now, something I did after the fact, I did an ecology check with her. So you just don't want to take things away because there might be a physical reason that they're there, and whatever's occurring in the body has a subconscious corresponding thought or rationale. And so what I did is I talked to her other than conscious mind, and I watched for visual cues. See, there's ideomotor signals, and it goes beyond this. Essentially that her body was telling me a yes and no. I created a yes and no signal. And so it turned out that the headache was a result of stress, undue stress. She felt like she was under the weight of the world. She just could not get away of this pulsating feeling. And then I asked, would her other than conscious mind be willing to use this strategy the next time she has pain or stress, just to kind of dim it down, dull it down, wash it away, and allow it to drip off her earlobe? And I got a yes in response. Those are just a couple of the examples and ways I've used submodalities in the past with clients. I've used them with myself. You can increase desire, increase the intensity of desire, increase the intensity of a belief, make a belief stronger, or you can weaken it. And we haven't even begun to talk about how we represent time and playing with your timeline and eradicating things off your timeline, putting things out into your future. There's a lot of different things you can do with the power of visualization. It is a master skill. And for me, it's one of the funnest things to teach people when they're learning NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, because it gives people the equivalent of an owner's manual on how to manipulate or shift or change your thoughts. Everyone says change your thinking, change your life. But how specifically do you change your thinking? How specifically do you think? It's not the content. It's not the words you say. It's how you think. It's the strategic patterns in which you process thought. Shift those and you begin to change everything. If you want to gain an unfair advantage and learn to program your mind for success, you can now learn with me inside the Nexus. The core program, the flagship program, is NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming for Personal Change, where you'll learn specifically how to run your brain, how to map out how your brain works. And then you can amplify what works, diminish what doesn't, and add things that you don't even have access to or don't think you have access to. Like I said, Neuro-Linguistic Programming for Personal Change inside the Nexus is the flagship program. Once you get the fundamentals down, you'll be able to apply it to all the other programs. There's the Intuition course, the Badass Manifester course, Subconscious Mind Mastery course, where you learn the ins and outs of self-hypnosis, how to live dangerously, unleashing your confidence and courage in every area of your life. 10x your confidence. What could you accomplish if you had 10 times the confidence? How would you like to enhance every one of your relationships by being able to communicate in a way that's impactful not only for you, but for your partner or your friends, your family? I wish I could tell you all the benefits that are available by learning this fundamental program on how to run your brain. And so, like I said, I'm inviting you to hang out with me inside the Nexus and discover the secrets to running your own brain. And the beauty of it is once you get it down, once you understand it, you can apply it to every area of your life, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just this year, but the rest of your life. This information, this learning does not have an expiration date, unlike my college education. So to get started or to learn more, go to yesdaniel.com. That's yesdaniel.com. If you're not yet ready to program your brain for success, then what I really want you to get out of this episode is the power of your imagination. You live your whole life in your head. Your world is a reflection of your mind. And your mind does not know the difference between something you vividly imagine and the real experience, whatever that is, because we're always representing experience out there and fitting it into our head. So this has been fun. Until next time, this is your friend and host, Daniel Desnoviers, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. Be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure.